Hi everyone, this is Anthony O'Flynn coming to you from the Sunshine Coast, and in this video I'll be offering an energy update for the autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere, which obviously corresponds to the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. So everyone in the northern hemisphere gearing up for warmer weather as we move into longer days, and in the southern hemisphere shorter days. So equinox is actually a combination of two Latin words, equi meaning equal, nox meaning night. So it's basically the middle point when the days and nights are of equal duration. And here in the southern hemisphere, obviously the nights will gradually become longer as we move towards the solstice. This is a very significant astrological moment. The two equinoxes, the two solstices combine to form the four cardinal points. So we basically have this idea of the cardinal signs, the representation of initiation, of moving forward, of a certain quality of dynamism. And this is concentrated in these moments of equinox and solstice. And it means basically that we have these four significant points, which obviously make a cross if you want to consider it like that. So Sri Yukteswar, who was the guru of Paramahamsa Yogananda, actually said that this moment of the equinox, this current equinox in March, is the most powerful astrological moment for the entire year. And that is because it's basically the astrological new year. We're basically moving into a new cycle of time through in astrology. Of course, everyone gets excited on January 1st with the Gregorian calendar, but that calendar, as we all know, is highly inaccurate. And the new year is an astrological new year because obviously the equinox marks the moving into Aries. So this degree 1 degree of Aries is considered to be so powerful because it is the first sign of the zodiac. Even the symbol for the Aries is considered to be like a fountain, something emerging, and everything that the Aries embodies with this youthfulness, this innocence, and this celebration of the beginning. So it's a very good time to start new projects, to take new initiatives, new belief systems, new habits, all the beneficial things and so on, particularly in the next 48 hours. So this is a very significant moment, and wish everyone the best for that. The equinox actually is tonight in Australia. In Queensland it is 1:36 a.m. Monday morning, so basically tonight. And this video actually took me by surprise a little bit. I didn't actually realize equinox was so soon. The days are just going so quickly. I'm sure you're all experiencing that. So 1:36 a.m. Monday the 21st of March in Queensland time, that is when the equinox is. So this energetic update will embody a number of aspects of what is going on globally, from a spiritual dimension, geopolitics, financial things with the precious metals, and a number of other topics which I won't go into in total detail now because some of them are quite complex, but I will offer a broad overview in this video. I will be making more videos when I get time throughout the year to give attention to many of these matters which are going to become increasingly apparent. So to start off, what I'm seeing is a lot of resistance in the awakening community to the bifurcation of consciousness, the actual split of consciousness, which is to be expected and is totally understandable, but it is something that collectively we're going to have to move through, because what I'm seeing is that there is a lot of people who they're not at peace with the fact that this splitting in consciousness is occurring, and many of their actions are basically trying to drag certain family members, friends, intimate partners, colleagues, whoever, kicking and screaming into the higher reality, the high forms of consciousness, which are starting to become more apparent. And this is completely futile. There are a certain section of the population, I won't say what I think it was now because I think people might find that a little bit shocking, simply have got no desire or will to vibrate at a higher state of consciousness. Some people would like to think they do, but their actions are completely incongruent to that, and they're simply not interested in this shift. They're not ready for it, and there is nothing wrong with that because that's part of their journey. But the reality is that the split is now starting to diverge, and it means that it's causing the people in the awakening movement who are feeling the call, who are hearing the call, to suffer a lot with this simultaneous rejection of these various people in their life, but not an acceptance of where they are actually at spiritually. And in this way, it's actually detrimental to both parties because you're actually stopping loving the people who are making different choices, who are having a different life journey, and that is actually not the goal of the shift either. So in this way, it is important to understand and just accept that not everyone is going to go on this journey, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was always going to be that way. It's the divine plan. And this bifurcation is becoming increasingly more apparent and will continue to actually. And it will create chaos in relationships, in employment, in spiritual communities as well, and in all different types of relationships. It's inevitable. But the question is, how can we navigate this with peace and being centered? And that's really our goal in all of this. So I would suggest that it's much better to work with where the people are at and not try to deny their reality as they're experiencing it, and at the same time causing yourself suffering by just allowing this process to unfold. It will be painful in a certain way, but it's not a question of being cold. It's actually the opposite. It's actually really becoming more compassionate and more understanding of everyone's unique soul journey. And this is part of the divine plan. So it's nothing to reject or criticize or get frustrated about. It's really understanding that there is a certain percentage of the population who are willfully remaining ignorant, who willfully are choosing not to open their heart to the possibilities of higher states of reality, of the new paradigm. And that's their choice. And they still have a right to be here on this planet, to go through their soul journey, their life lessons, to experience what they are incarnated to experience. And that's all part of the divine plan, of part of the greater reality which we're all a part of. And this is something that really people are going to cause themselves a lot of frustration and anger and disappointment and despair if people continue to reject the fact that people are not celebrating this, not integrating these new frequencies, and this is ultimately the individual's choice. And it's also important to remember that it's extremely egotistical in a reverse way to try to dictate to anybody what they should believe, how they should live, what choices they should make. So it's important to see that there is a certain shadow element in the awakening community around some of these themes, which isn't integrated yet. And that's to be expected. It's all part of the journey. But it's important to understand that perhaps sometimes we are the ones who are not able to honour where a certain person is at in their life and the direction they want to go in, and whatever choices they make to honour those. It's difficult, it's not easy, but it's something to be conscious of. So because of this, one trend that I spoke about, even I think it was 2 years ago, I can't remember now, it was a while back, was the increasing turning to various forms of spirituality in the what you can refer to as the truth movement or the freedom movement. And this has become very apparent, particularly with the greater integration of the message of Jesus, the Christ consciousness, even the second coming in the truth community. And this is actually having a deeper function because much of the truth community, the freedom movement, is focusing on the external aspects of the awakening. such as challenging the government corruption, abuse of human rights, freedom of choice, all these sorts of things, all very valid and important. But there, at times, and I'm generalizing obviously here, there hasn't been a deeper integration of the inner journey. And that's what we're starting to see more of now. And I discuss this theme in my book in great depth of this integration of a deeper level of the inner journey, the inner awakening, and to understand that perhaps some of the time what we're really fighting is ourselves, and that we're our own worst enemy at times. And this results in a projection outwards of looking at the world with all its ills and wrongdoing and everything that's wrong, as a way of compensating for our own inability to look within, and our own inability to heal ourselves, and our own inability to transform. And so what happens is then everything is just pushed outward. The focus is always outward. And this will gradually change, which will be it'll make some of the individuals in the truth community extremely powerful, both in the inner world and the outer world. And this is something that I'm very excited to see, and I do expect a lot of the people on this journey to go through a radical transformation across the course of this decade, which I'm really excited about. So wishing everyone the best with that. At the same time, there is a extreme blind spot in what I refer to as a spiritual community, in terms of what I refer to as classical spirituality, in that there is too much of a focus on the inner world and very little attention given to the outer world, in the sense that many people are just focusing on their own inner salvation without actually thinking of the collective, thinking of being more humanitarian. And we are entering the age of Aquarius, which is a humanitarian sign, and it is focused on the collective. And so this is a great limitation to people engaging in spiritual practices, and their practices may be very strong, they may be very conscious, they may be very pure, but there is the limitation that they're unable to go to the next level, where the focus is all about them, which is an extremely selfish attitude, and it's the breeding ground for it's a clear breeding ground for spiritual narcissism. And this means that there's just the focus on my spiritual path, on my evolution, on my chakras, and everything. And this domain is necessary for the transformation as we move forward for the evolution of our soul. But it's incomplete unless there's an integration of what can be termed sacred activism, or basically humanitarian projects. And for example, if we can't use these qualities that we're developing at an internal level externally, then there is not a significant leap in consciousness. There is not a significant leap in evolution. And this is something that in the spiritual community we need to address and identify and start to work with. So I think this will change as well as we move through this, and there will be a more complete, a more holistic attitude to evolution in the spiritual community. And again, these are generalizations. This doesn't apply to everybody or every spiritual movement, but there is a tendency there that I'm seeing. And a really good example of this is what's occurring in Northern Rivers at the moment. Now, you may not be aware, but it's now been 20 days since, it's about 3 weeks now, 20 days, 3 weeks, since all the damage occurred. And it is absolutely heartbreaking to see that people who have thrown out all of their belongings onto the street, onto the curb, for them basically to rot, and nothing's being done. There's very limited support from ADF and from SES, and people who are there, who are helping every day, are examples of what I'm referring to with the limitation of the spiritual community, in the sense that many of these people perhaps would not consider themselves to be particularly spiritually focused, and yet their actions and their outlook is so spiritually focused that it's amazing. I mean, it's a spiritual practice in itself what they're doing, and extremely selfless and extremely heart-centered. So congratulations to all the people who are down there helping each other. And this is an example of what needs to change to integrate the new earth and go back to this sort of more community-based tribal way of living, which the guys in the Northern Rivers are really pulling together in this crisis, which is remarkable. And it is a clear sign, in my view, of the new earth, of the new paradigm itself. I even saw a video, or it was a picture, I think it was a video, of one guy who was just in his bobcat working to put the road back together where the floods had washed it out, and he was just doing that by himself with his bobcat. And this is incredible, and this consciousness that these people are manifesting is, in my view, of a very high vibration, very selfless, very heart-centered, and the way forward for us as a collective. And this highlights another aspect of the disintegration of the control systems, because it has highlighted, this crisis, the complete unwillingness or inability of the government to coordinate a successful active response after 20 days. And it is even possible, as some people are claiming, that this is actually deliberate. And this is a very key sign of the shift itself, because these huge institutions are failing us collectively. And now people are starting to question, I pay all these taxes, excise tax, GST, income tax, rates, all of these bills. And then what is the return we get on our investment when we actually need help, support with those resources to be spent? And I'm of the understanding that the budget for the ADF, that's the Australian Defence Force, is over $40 billion. And if they could coordinate this extreme, well-organised, well-executed response to the pandemic, then why can't they do the same after 20 days for the people of Lismore, for the people of the Northern Rivers? And it's actually having the beneficial aspect that it's showing the dysfunction of the government, the inability of all the different levels of government, local government, state government, and all the organisations that get funded, the police, the SES, the ADF, to actually manage a coordinated response. And the longer it goes on, the more disastrous it will be for people's attitudes towards these organisations. But I have actually seen reports that the Fireys have been doing a great job. And I'm not suggesting that there is no support from those organisations, there definitely is. But after 21 days, why are the people still basically living in squalor? I mean, it's truly remarkable that we're not even getting a proper explanation about this from either state or federal government. And this leads me on to the election, which will be in May, which will be lost by Scott Morrison. I cannot see in any way how he can possibly be re-elected. He will be regarded, in my view, as it stands today, as the worst Prime Minister in the history of Australia, without question. I can't even imagine what he would even consider his own legacy to be. I mean, we blew $100 billion on JobKeeper, not one bridge, not one hospital, not one road built. And he will say he somehow managed and coordinated the pandemic successfully. He has been a true embarrassment to the people of Australia and is a clear-cut clinical example of failed leadership. So for this reason, I'm supremely confident that Albanese will be elected the next Prime Minister. I don't support the Labor Party at all. And this is reinforced by the election in South Australia last night, which was won by the Labor Party. The Liberal Party lost after one term. It is going to be a disaster. It is going to create a lot of chaos, this outcome of this election. But I feel that there is a genuine disdain for this man in Australia and everything that he represents. and his total inability or even refusal to act like a leader in times of crisis, going back to the bushfires. And the cherry on the cake has been his total inactivity and inertia in this flood crisis, which has been devastating to so many people throughout Australia, not just in northern rivers. Significantly in this election, my view is that there will be a lot of shock in the awakening community of the inability to for candidates to get elected in the House of Representatives. This is due to the ongoing division and also a certain ignorance to understand how big that mountain is to climb to have any independent, anyone from the minor parties elected into the House of Representatives. To give you an idea of how difficult that will be, the bookies are currently running UAP, United Australia Party, to win one seat, paying $8. That's just one seat. And even Craig Kelly himself is paying $11 to win his seat of Hughes in New South Wales, according to the bookmakers. So the odds are stacked against the minors winning seats in the Parliament. There's currently 3 independents. But however, the Senate is going to be a very different story, and I think there'll be a lot of success in the Senate. I'll give more details about all that as we get closer to the election. But the overall outcome will be quite a lot of shock and disbelief in the awakening community of the lack of success, of the lack of translating political activism, social activism into actual direct representation in the Parliament. And that's going to be a massive wake-up call for a lot of people. And the realisation that some of the candidates they're supporting, they're never going to get elected. They're either loose cannons, creating division, creating mayhem, or don't have a big enough following, simply very, very difficult to get elected. I mean, for example, the Gap is paying something like 251 to get one seat elected. So turning to the economy now, obviously that is going to be a major focus in 2022 in Australia. The outcome of this will be a genuine humbling of the Australian people. One of the themes that will be very challenging for the Australian collective is that of entitlement. We live in such an entitled culture. It's just unbelievable how entitled people are, as reflected in terms of debt, reflected in terms of some of the service you get from some of the businesses that you deal with. Simply no customer service or integrity at all. And a lot of these businesses are going to get completely smashed as we move into it's going to be a colossal economic downturn, which has already started. And we're really at a place of realising just how entitled we are here in Australia as we move forward. And it's really summed up in this expression, pride comes before the fall. And then that's where we're at, which is going to be very confronting for our collective. Currently, inflation is running at officially somewhere between 6 and 9% in USA. I've seen it at 7%, but the unofficial figures indicate that that's much higher. And basically, because of the Pluto return in the USA, which has started this year, many of the New Agers got hysterical about this one day in February with Pluto return. And Pluto is a slow-moving planet. It's an outer planet. It's a transpersonal planet. Pluto transits last for years. So what we're seeing unfold in the USA with the breaking down of supply chains, the increasing inflation, it's nothing compared to what's going to be happening moving forward. And of course, America will be the epicenter for the economic fallout from basically what's necessary to happen to create a genuine new economic system. Those of you who are waiting for some kind of quantum financial system, whatever name they're giving to it, this is a total fantasy, and it's a fantasy being perpetuated by people who are either delusional and or working as agents for different organizations. If every single person on this country was just given a kilo, on this planet was given a kilo of gold, what would that mean the gold would be worth? Nothing. Why? Because it's not scarce, because it therefore has no value, because it's accessible to all. It's the same thing as giving Is everyone going and getting a bucket of sand from the beach and saying the sand is worth money? Of course it's not worth money, because it's just everywhere. And some of these viewpoints around this are completely laughable from an economic perspective, and they have no merit whatsoever, and they're just based in fantasy. So don't be waiting for some external savior, for someone to come and take care of all your financial needs. And that's basically communism anyway, that even the belief system around that. So be careful of these people who are perpetuating such fantasies, because they are not based in reality at all. This takes me on to the next point, which is the compensation, or how to deal with inflation. None of this is financial advice, but it's important to take into account that the traditionally the only way to compensate for inflation is hard assets, and traditionally they have been silver, gold and land. And in this time also it will be crypto. People will turn to crypto, and this will particularly happen when the stock market crashes. Because it's a digital asset, money can move quickly, but the stock market will ultimately correct in a major way at some point. And this will also give fuel to the rise of the price of silver, because the markets are manipulated, and we're seeing now a clear push into the global climate change agenda as expressed in the support for electric cars. Queensland government is now giving rebates for people purchasing electric cars. They're not even easy to get, actually. I've called up one supplier to ask how long the wait would be, and they told me 7 months. So the point is here is that the silver on this planet is being consumed, and some people consider that there is over 2 kilos of silver used in each electric car. We can't get sales figures for Tesla, but if this increases, then there will be an increased demand for silver. And if you actually look at the statistics and break it down, how many electric cars are made each year, how much silver is made each year, like 800 million ounces of silver is mined each year. And then what that will actually mean for the consumption of silver will mean that silver should turn to its true value. And currently the gold-silver ratio is currently at 76. So that means that 1 ounce of gold equals 76 ounces of silver. And traditionally this has been like 10 or 12 to 1. So that shows you how out of kilter this current silver price is with history. And also it's coming out of the ground mined at about 15 to 1 as a ratio. So you do the math on that, and ultimately the papering over of the paper trades will not be able to continue eventually. So just a couple of more points before I finish. Other major forecasts I am predicting is a return to the earth, a return to self-sufficiency, and a return to people much more integrated with the earth, not just growing food and living in nature, but more connected to the earth, more having a symbiotic relationship with the earth, more having a more integrated connection to the earth, and as expressed through permaculture, through syntropics and all these other practices to really reintegrate us back into the earth. And that will be something that will be living off-grid, will become not just a trend, but a more way of living, using solar energy and all the other ways that are more environmentally friendly and sustainable. And that's going to be very exciting to see as well. And people moving out of the cities if they can. That doesn't mean if you're not moving out of the city, you're not partaking in the shift. This is just from a general point of view. So really, to sum up, we're really looking at the implosion of the cartel. It is a complete disaster for them, the course of action that they're on. There is absolutely no way that they're going to succeed in their plans to introduce communism, totalitarianism on this planet. They are in the death throes, actually. This system is breaking down. More people are questioning the mainstream narrative. More people are actually starting to reject the values put towards them by the mainstream media. More people look at the politicians as white-collar criminals. More people are challenging the corruption of government. More people are asking questions about the values in society. More people are rejecting the new norm, the social engineering around a whole range of issues, including climate change, and are basically breaking free of the hypnosis. And this trend will absolutely 100% intensify moving across 2022. The chaos will intensify as well, particularly the economic chaos. It is going to be a very difficult time. There's no turning away from that, particularly here in Australia, with the amount of debt people have got and the hedonism that has been implemented and introduced into our culture. And this debt frenzy that people have been on is simply living beyond our means collectively, which is, it's just completely childish, really, and to live like this, and yet so many of us have done that. So I do forecast that there will be a greater spiritual awakening as we move forward into 2022, a greater emphasis on mental health, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, all these things. I have a yoga retreat in Easter. I'll put the link in the in the comments description, and this is really going to be a time when the people start to question the role of government, when they start to question what role of government should have in our life. Why am I paying all these different taxes, and what am I actually getting for that? And people have had enough of the corruption, of the selling out of the will of the Australian people to international organisations, whether it's the WHO, the UN, secret societies, or all kinds of organisations that are having impact on our daily life, and basically it's time to address this at a deeper way and create systemic change. It's an exciting time to be here, and it's also time for people to find their voice and start to say what they feel in their heart. And unless you're doing that, I'm sorry to say, but you're lacking the courage, and that is still living in a state of fear. And these states of fear must be countered if we are to successfully move into the new paradigm. And fear is one of the big ones. So I wish everyone all the best. I'll be making more videos on these topics. I'll put a link in the description to my book, Paradigm Shift, The Global Awakening of Humanity, 2020 to 2040. And I consider this window of awakening that we're in now to really be an exciting time to bring this consciousness to the new earth, to really live it as best as we can, to undergo this radical awakening, to question what we're seeing in the mainstream media, to question what the motivations are of the politicians, to question basically everything. Because so much of what we've been taught, we've been lied to and manipulated. And this time is coming to an end. And that's why many of us incarnated, was to co-create the new reality, the new paradigm. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll make another video soon. Happy Equinox, and we live in epic times.